Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Arima. If this is your first time on my channel, please do not make it the last by clicking on the subscribe button, giving this video a thumbs up if you end up liking it. With me, I have the most popular Ada Canada. You can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikki, but many of you might know me as Ada Canada. Because that's the name of my YouTube channel. So I make videos on YouTube as well, talking about studying in Canada, lifestyle, immigration, and also a little bit of vlogging here and there. So yeah, subscribe to our channel and also subscribe to my channel.
She's a YouTuber. I know a lot of you who are so gloomed in getting information about Canada know her so well. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about culture shock. So Ada came into Canada 2015 and I came into Canada 2022 December. Let's just say 2023 approximately, right? At first, I have some of the culture shock written down on my list so I do not forget or mix any of them up. So the first one on my list, we're talking about having a car or driving here in Canada, as well as the transportation system. So we're going to wrap all of those together in one.
I never drove while I was in Nigeria. I never learned how to drive in Nigeria. I just got into Canada and then I learned how to drive. So, but before I even started learning to drive, I had to rely on the public transportation. Now, here's the thing. I wasn't living within the vicinity of my school. I was living a distance away. I was living about 20 minutes away from school. And 20 minutes is if you're driving on a good day and there's no traffic. And that's with a car. So, I didn't have a car. I didn't have anybody to drop me off at school. Where I was staying was kind of far. I had to rely on public transport. I would spend an hour to an hour and a half to get to school and also coming back from school.
That's tough.
But the thing here is the transportation network is good. It's just that it's not as fast as you would want it. I use the train a lot because that's just the only way. It's faster than using a bus. If I had used only the bus system, it would take me longer and I would have to switch buses up to about 3 or 4 times.
That's a long.
Yes,
that's a long ride.
no, nobody's here for that. So in my case, where I was living at the time, I would take the bus to get to the train station, and then I would take the train station to get directly to school. I went to the University of Alberta, so there are 2 train stations that are attached to that school. And once you get to the train station, just climb upstairs because the train kind of goes on the ground.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was easier for me. And even at that, it would take me an hour and a half, right? The transportation I would say is very, very developed. It's very, very connected in many ways. I wasn't really bothered about the fact that I didn't have a car because that wasn't my priority at the time. I just had to deal with what I had. What I had available to me was public transportation, and that's what I did. A lot of people use public transportation, even people who have cars too. Yeah. They also use public transportation depending on where you're going. Having a car is not a luxury.
It's a necessity, right?
Yes. I mean, I'll give you an example of the distance. From my place to her place, it takes about 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and that depends on traffic. And we are all in Edmonton, right? So if I were to use public transportation, I would spend 2 hours before I would get here. But having a car is more of a necessity than a luxury. However, as a newbie coming into Canada, don't be so stressed about the fact that you need a car. Just focus on what is the most important to you at that time, especially if you're a student. And then once you graduate, all these things will come in place and you figure out that okay, a car is just something you need to get you from point A to point B, especially when the weather is minus for something degrees.
Yeah, it really gets frustrating during the winter time, right? Yeah. And another good thing about living in Edmonton as an international student is the fact that a lot of universities in Edmonton give their students the opportunity to have this transit card, so they don't have to spend so much on transportation, right? Like my school, for example, right, they gave all their students a transit card, which is being paid for by the school. So what you do is when you go into school or any of your you have any activities to do outside, you don't have to bother about making payments, huge amount of money for your transportation. You can effortlessly go out with your transit card, which is paid for by the school. And that makes transportation really easy and efficient here in Canada.
That's like a big culture shock. And also the way that people drive,
it's way different from driving in Nigeria. I took like a 3 weeks driving class way in Nigeria. I learned how to drive in Lagos State, as busy as Lagos and as crazy as Lagos State is. On arriving in Canada, I'm like, okay, I don't know if the driving lessons I took back in Nigeria would even help me here, because there's a lot. It's totally
the system is different. You know, back in Nigeria, we don't have so much signs like road signs, not the traffic signs, but more like road signs, yield, all these signs that you have to obey. The way people drive is so different. But the good thing there is that if you know how to drive in Lagos, if you don't drive like those mad people, those crazy people, you know what I'm talking about, people. Right?
Yeah.
You don't drive like those crazy people, right? But if you know how to drive in Lagos and you survive driving in Lagos, you will definitely survive.
Having a balanced life here in Canada, I don't know what your take on having a balanced life here in Canada is. How did you tend to manage working, being a YouTuber? Because for a person going to school, I find it really difficult. I really don't understand how people tend to manage their schedule, because you tend to find out that time goes really fast here in Canada.
So in terms of like work-life balance, because I think that's what you're asking about. It's very tough, because from my perspective, coming in as an immigrant, all we want to do is just work and make the money, save the money, because we have responsibilities. Maybe you have to send money back home. Maybe you have a family to take care of if you're married, or like maybe you have other things that you need to do. You know, maybe you have loans to repay if you took a loan to come here. So like, I understand that, you know, many times the work-life balance can get very shaky and very unstable here, because we're so focused on the things that we want to do. We're so focused on making money that we just want to make that money, and we don't create time for ourselves. It's tough. It is very tough. That's one thing I would say. When I was in school at the U of A, I wasn't working myself. First of all, my program didn't even allow me work. It was a course-based master's, and you know, it was just so busy that there just wasn't any time to work, because I would go to school from Monday to Friday, and then I would spend the weekends doing assignments and all that sort of thing. I hadn't even started YouTube at that time, but I was really very stressed out from going to school. So there just wasn't any time for me to work. But during the summertime, I had more hours. I had more time on my hands. I wasn't taking so many courses. I was only doing my capstone. So I had more time to give in to work. So what I would say is, like, understand what your priorities are as a new person in Canada, or maybe if you're still foreign, if you're an international student, or, you know, you came in with a foreign visa or what have you, just like try and understand what your priorities are. Like, always make sure that your priorities are set straight. For example, if you are an international student, right, you know that you need to make your grades. You need to really do well in school.
Very important.
Because you can't afford to fail a course as an international student. Guys, it's so expensive as an international student.
Just to take a
like
course.
With inflation going on now, one course is like, I can't even begin to tell you, but like,
I think in my school, taking like an extra course after failing it is like $2,500, which is pretty much expensive.
That's a lot more than what a domestic citizen will pay. So as an international student, it's really expensive to study in Canada. So I would say when you come here, your priority first of all is studying, because trust me, it's not nice to fail a course for one reason or the other, because when you think of the money you have to pay again. So another thing is, if you're not used to working and going to school from your home country, it might be a bit of an adjustment when you come here.
Be really challenging
so it's going to be challenging to adjust your way around. But what I would say is, just like, always make sure that you set your priorities straight, right? So if you're in school, focus on the school. If you have the time and the opportunity to work, maybe work on the weekends for say maybe 4 hours, right? You can work 4 hours on a weekend, maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, or both Sunday and Saturday, right? So that's 4 hours out of your entire day, and then you can give more time to studying or doing your assignments, right?
Yeah.
So reduce the number of hours, and that is if you've gotten a job. I would say reduce the number of hours, but if you feel you can handle it, then I would say go for it. But like if you're someone who maybe you feel like you find yourself struggling, just focus on school, and once school is done, you can then work more hours. There's time for everything. The work and the money that you're chasing, right? There's time for everything. All those things are going to come later on.
It is okay to feel a little bit overwhelmed, especially as a new international student in Canada.
So, one thing I wanted to say about jobs is, as an international student, it's easy to get job. Now, I'm not saying that, when you submit your first application, you get a job. If you're lucky, they'll call you for an interview. But like sometimes you have to like keep applying and applying. Like you have to keep trying, sending resumes.
Yeah.
Right, repeatedly before you can get a call back. So don't give up. And there are certain jobs where you don't necessarily need to have experience. For example, a place like retail, working at the store, Walmart, those kinds of jobs, I find them sort of easy to like just get your foot in and start working, getting paid so that you can pay bills.
Even if it's not your preference.
Yes, even if it's not your preference, but it's you have to always like remind yourself that this is something that is short term.
Yeah.
Like it's not a permanent fix. It's just while you're going to school. When you're done with school, you can go into the bigger river to look for bigger fish.
Full-time jobs. Yeah,
full-time jobs. Always tailor your resume to meet with the roles, the responsibilities of that position, because that's how you can easily get called for an interview at best.
Another culture shock here in Canada is the different time zone. You might be in Toronto, right, and have a different time from us right here in Alberta in Canada, despite the fact that it's the same country. I think there are about 4 time zones here in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Actually not sure. I know of 3. There's like a time zone in the easternmost part, which is Newfoundland, and then there's like a time zone again in Toronto, like that Toronto axis, and then there's like us here,
and then someone in British Columbia too. I think a friend of mine in British Columbia,
so it's 4 time zones.
They have so many time zones here in Canada.
And it's 4 time zones.
Compared to way back home in Nigeria, you just have one time. Another thing about the time is that they have daylight savings. I was asleep and I was like, instead of getting to 3 o'clock, instead of getting to 2 o'clock, it skipped to 3 o'clock. In my mind, I'm like, isn't it daylight? It's so confusing. The daylight
savings is so annoying. It took me a while for me to get used to it. It's kind of annoying in the sense that like the time that people are so used to talking to you, especially if they are not here in Canada, is a different time.
Yeah.
Right? For example, if you're in Nigeria, and I'm using Nigeria as an example because like most of our family is back home
Nigeria,
and if you're in Nigeria, maybe they are so used to talking to you at a particular time, but when daylight savings has ended, like when it's winter period, it won't be the same time because we're 1 hour behind and we have to move back again. So it's like people will get used to something, a certain time that you talk to them, and then when daylight savings after some months it kind of moves back
and they have to be adjusted again. It's at 9 p.m. right now with the daylight saving. At this moment, it's still so bright outside, guys. That is really, really amazing.
As we get closer to June, by 10 p.m. it's still pretty bright.
Yeah.
Like it will only it starts getting dark as from 11:30 p.m.
If it was the same back home, I'm pretty much sure people would walk up until that same time till it gets dark in Nigeria. Because right here, I think it gives people the opportunity to go out and walk even more because it's still very bright outside. They can still move around. Like it's just 4 p.m. in the afternoon as compared to it being 9 p.m. or even 10 p.m., which is really amazing, right?
This is even better in places up north, like in the Northwest Territories in Canada. By midnight, it's still very bright.
The next thing is the cost of living, which is another that's the cost that's a big culture shock for me. The cost of living here in Canada is it's pretty expensive. I don't know, like, it's expensive.
Expensive to buy a house, expensive to rent. There's inflation
everywhere.
I'm sorry, we can't talk about cost of living without talking about inflation in Canada. Yeah. The thing there is, Canada is going through it right now. It's going through a lot right
the
now.
rent people someone is paying in a month here in Canada, you can utilize that in paying your rent like for a year back home.
Yeah. And then again, I think the shock there is that in Nigeria and in some other places, rent is per annum. You pay once in a year, and the amount you're paying covers you for the entire year until it's time to like renew your rent
for the next year.
But over here in Canada, it's a very, very big shock because you pay every month. So you find out that the amount that you spend in a year for rent is what you're actually paying in a month, or even more in a month. So that was like a big thing for me to like get
myself
used
too.
To. On the first of the month, it should not go past the first. Another thing is, like here people like business is business. Business is business, right? If you sign a lease to rent an apartment, and they tell you on that lease that on the first of every month is when your rent is due. That is what it is. So if it goes beyond the first of the month, maybe the second or the third, some people will fine you. They'll add like a $50 fine,
$50
or $100 fine. So it's not like some places back home, like if you don't pay, it's like a hassle. Some people might give you some grace period. They don't really give so much grace period here. See, on the first of the month, they want their money. They don't care however it is that money comes, as long as you paid your rent. It's business. And if you don't pay your rent, they are going to evict you out because you're breaking the lease, right? You have to. That's why you have to read that lease before you sign it.
When it comes to finding the best bank for you, when you're looking for the best bank for you, you should look for a bank where you would get a credit card that has high reward or good reward and good benefits, especially as a student, and then as an international student who wants to start building their credit scores, right? I'm just new to a system whereby I start making use of credit card as compared to back home. I mean, we don't always make use of credit card back home. On arrival to Canada, I come to a realization that I have to start building my credit score, which is really new to me.
I think the thing with credit, this is more on the financial side of things. This is where you have to demonstrate financial responsibility, right? So with the credit system thing, it's just a way of you showing that you are someone that the bank can trust, or maybe companies, different stores can trust in terms of like payment. So when you get a credit card, it's like you're basically borrowing money from the bank to pay for stuff, right? That's exactly what it is in layman terms. You're borrowing money from the bank to pay for stuff, and the moment you start shopping, the moment you start using the card, you have to pay it back, right? Every month there's a certain interest that you have to pay it back. So for example, you can take a credit card with a limit up to, I don't know what the limit is for students, but let's assume the limit is $1,000. So you have a credit card, and your credit limit that's the maximum amount that you can borrow from the bank is $1,000. You take a $1,000 credit card, you start using it. Let's say this month you go to groceries and you use the credit card to pay for groceries. It's $100. That means you borrowed $100 from your bank that gave you the credit card. You've borrowed $100. You have to pay the $100 back. And it's every month, because at the end of the month you get like this bank statement thing. It shows you like, okay, this is what you spent your money on, the money that we borrowed you. This is how much that you are owing us because you took $100 for grocery shopping, right? And this is how much you have to pay. If you have the $100, I would say pay the complete money if you have the $100. If you have to use your credit card again, go use it, pay the $100. But like, if you have the complete money, pay the $100. If you don't have the complete money, the bank is going to calculate and tell you how much you should pay every month in order to complete that $100. That's the way the credit system works. So anytime you use a credit card, you swipe, you pay for stuff, you're basically borrowing money from the bank. And it's your responsibility to pay back, because that is where it's going to demonstrate that you are someone who is reliable to the bank or to other financial institutions. For example, buying a house. For example, buying a car. Those are like two of the major areas where you will need to show good credit. And that good credit means that, okay, you've been borrowing money, but you've also been paying back. You haven't been waiting until it is past the deadline.
Oh, that's a really nice one, actually.
Food is such a big culture shock.
Oh my goodness, guys.
It was a culture shock to me. So food, wait, first of all, groceries are now so expensive. So I don't even know how international students are even doing it right now. So the culture shock is that the kind of food that people eat here is so different from what it is back home. Yeah. And then you come here, you're seeing something so strange that you're not used to.
Food.
Yeah. So another thing, you know, is that there is a lot of processed food compared to some places back home where you get organic food straight from the farm, you know, farmers market. Organic food is a lot cheaper back home. Organic food is expensive here, and it is the processed food that is actually cheaper. Yeah. And because of the way groceries are going up, you know, some people can't afford certain things, so they go for processed food because that's cheaper and that's what they can afford. Not everybody can afford to eat organic food, right? So processed food is a thing here. Not saying it's healthy, it's not necessarily healthy. I don't normally advise people to go for processed food, but then I can understand, you know, financial challenges here and there, and you have to just make do with whatever you have at that point in time. But like, there's a lot of processed food that is cheap, and that is what a lot of people go for. And in the long run, it affects your health, you know, adding weight, especially that visceral body weight, body fat, or maybe like having to do with cancer, diabetes. Exactly. Yeah, some of all these chronic diseases, right, that come from lifestyle. So one thing I always advise is it's cheaper to cook your meals as opposed to eating outside. It's a lot cheaper to cook healthier meals than eating outside. Not saying there's anything bad with eating outside. Sometimes it's good to eat out once in a while, but I'm just saying that it's not very cost effective. If you're trying to save money, please don't eat out. If you're an international student, I don't expect you to be eating out, because that's one way that your money is going to disappear. Money. You spend $10 every day buying food. $10 with $10 you can get food, right? So like, you find out that by the time you total that $10 every day, because you're not cooking, you're always eating out, that's a lot of money that you could have taken to buy something from the grocery store, make something to eat that is going to like last you for like a week. So it's always cheaper to cook your food yourself.
And then when it comes to saving for international students, if you are in Edmonton, I don't know about other provinces, right? I feel like you should try and register for your campus food bank. I think they provide means for students to be able to cut down expenses they make on feeding, and also not just the school related, your campus food bank, right? You should also try to register for the Edmonton food bank. I think they provide a lot of food for food hampers for
even baby products.
Exactly.
If you're here with your child who is still wearing diapers, for example, or your toddler or something like that, right? Even baby products. They do give them out at the Edmonton Food Bank.
It helps you to cut down expenses as international students, and then you don't have to start struggling to go to school or struggling to work. If you're able to get that and get your transport or transit card from your school, it helps you with transportation, and the other one helps you with feeding. I think you'll be good and ready to go. I think that's all for the culture shock. We'll be having another video that we made in Ada's channel. Please, after this, hurry up to her channel. We just made a really interesting video. If you really want to know about how to apply, when to start applying for your applications, I think you need to hurry up because we dropped it and it's still so spicy and hot. Guys, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Hit on the bell notification so you get notified when we upload new videos on our channels, and also subscribe to our channel so you keep on seeing these beautiful faces. Thanks for staying tuned to this very moment.
Thank you guys for watching.
Bye guys. Bye.